So with scandals swirling around the Justice Department, Attorney General Eric Holder desperately needs a reset button. But his plans for damage control are running into some roadblocks as he deals with fallout from the snooping scandal. It didn't help that he asked to keep his meetings with news editors off the record, meaning they cannot be the subject of stories when discussing secret subpoenas for reporters' records in a leak investigation. Plus, he's facing new questions on Capitol Hill about his prior testimony. Jonah Goldberg is editor-at-large for National Review Online, also a Fox News contributor. Jonah, if you were getting one of those invitations to sit down with the Attorney General and chat about guidelines for, reporters' sources and when it's appropriate for the Justice Department to go after them, what would you tell him?
I think what I'd probably do is I'd probably give my invitation to James Rosen and send him as my proxy. I think that would be a lot of fun. Look, I think that news organizations can come down on both sides of this question about whether or not they should go. I think that it depends. I understand why a lot of the press has suddenly discovered a spine when it comes to this sort of thing. At the same time, I'm glad that a lot of news organizations aren't going, even if I may disagree with some of their reasoning. I don't really need to hear a lot of preening from the New York Times about all these things. Because what I think what Holder is trying to do here is trying to put all the scandal parts behind him and move forward on policy. It's very much like what Barack Obama says about Benghazi and the IRS. He says, look, I want to fix the problem. Let's move forward. And what that is in effect doing is it's basically a spin operation. It's to say that all of the things that Eric Holder did wrong, all the rules that he violated, he violated the existing rules. So who cares about new rules? That's all behind us, and let's move forward. And it's an attempt to sort of buy in the press. And I'm glad that the press is resisting it, whatever their reasons.
A little bit like Richard Nixon inviting the press to a meeting about future burglaries of Democratic Party headquarters, is what you're saying.
Yeah, well, it's an attempt to co-opt the press and say, get them in on this process of moving forward and make all of the things that Holder has already done seem like old news. And I understand why Holder wants to do that, and I'm glad that the press is resisting it.
You mentioned the New York Times. The executive editor of that paper said, it isn't appropriate for us to attend an off-the-record meeting with the Attorney General. Our Washington bureau is aggressively covering the department's handling of leak investigations at this time. You disagree with that rationale?
No, look, I think that that's a perfectly valid point. I think that, though, what's probably really motivating a lot of the mainstream media is they feel like they've been had. They've been treated like cheap dates by this administration for a very long time, and now they're going to exert their principles and exact a price from this administration, and I'm glad to see it happening. It's sort of like, stem cell therapy that they've regrown a spine. But I'm not sure that the Times is all of that. Given how friendly the Times has been to this administration for so long, their newfound convictions kind of leave me cold.
Isn't there one very big guideline already in place called the First Amendment?
No, there is, and and you're supposed to treat reporters from any news organization as if they're agents of a foreign power and spies. I mean, I'm actually a pretty hawkish guy on leak investigations, but what this administration essentially did is told a judge that James Rosen fell afoul of the Espionage Act, or may have fallen afoul of the Espionage Act, and that's not what journalists do. I may be tough on leaks, but they're not spies, and that certainly wasn't. And now Eric Holder says that they never really thought that James Rosen was going to be prosecuted. So either Eric Holder lied to a judge, or the Justice Department lied to a judge, or Eric Holder lied to Congress. I don't see how he can not have lied to both.
Because he had to call him a co-conspirator in that document in order to get the judge to sign off on it. Is that what you're saying?
Right. Well, he said that James Rosen was a potential criminal. They actually have to name him as a flight risk in order to keep it secret from him. And they said that he was a co-conspirator on a crime. Now, that seems to me, if you go to a judge and say you need to do all of these things because he may be guilty of a crime and may need to be prosecuted, that's preparing for a potential prosecution. And then you can't go to Congress and say, I've never been even part of a consideration of a potential prosecution for a journalist. Those things are irreconcilable, at least as far as I understand it.
Yeah, and I know that if Rosen fled to Cuba and didn't show up for work, our Washington bureau chief would have his head. Jonah Goldberg, thank you.
Great to be here. Thank you.